Hi, everybody. I'm David. And tonight I am going to talk about my experience and journey with recovering from an addiction to pornography. Now, I know that might make a few people here uncomfortable, and believe me, I completely understand. I'm just as uncomfortable. This is not easy, but I have learned that I must share my experiences. My desire tonight is that by sharing those experiences, is that somebody who is also struggling with addiction will be able to find hope. I'm going to start tonight by sharing my sobriety date, which is May 6, 2016. And I know for some people that might seem like a long time, but for me, it really feels like I'm just beginning my journey. And tonight, as I share my journey, I'm going to use dates. I'm going to share several dates that have been impactful to my recovery. The first date I'm going to share is December 10th, 2010. And that morning, I woke up to the smell of burning wood. And I quickly realized that the Provo Tabernacle, which was a few blocks from my house at the time, was on fire. Now, this was a devastating day for the community. Tears were cried and hearts were broken. It was a very emotional day for everybody, except for me. For most of my life, when anything emotional, stressful, or difficult happened in my life, I would use pornography to numb away those feelings. So when something as sad as the Provo Tabernacle fire happened, I understood that it was a sad and devastating day, but I never actually felt any of those emotions. Let me give you another example. March 23rd, 2000, my son Spencer was born. He was born with a birth defect that required immediate surgery. The only problem was that the closest hospital that could perform the surgery was 4 hours away. So off I went to be with my newborn son down to UCLA Medical Center, leaving my wife behind in a different hospital. I found myself alone, confused, doubtful, stressed, lonely, and fearful. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I needed to be strong. And so I turned to what I thought would give me comfort, and that was pornography. And I'm not proud of this, but in my spare time, I would find magazines at a magazine stand or at a bookstore. So this pattern continued throughout my life. Anytime something emotional, stressful, difficult happened in my life, I would use pornography to numb away those emotions. And it got to the point where I didn't think that I would be able to change. I was definitely stuck in the willpower trap. And I believed that it was something that I would just have to keep a secret. And I would manage to keep it a secret until May 5th, 2016, when my wife caught me. And that night, it felt like my life was ruined. My wife was very upset for obvious reasons and wanted to kick me out. Things weren't going very well at work. I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go, and I didn't feel like I had any friends. I felt completely alone. At this crucial moment, I had a decision to make. I could keep doing what I was doing, and it was clear that that was going to lead to divorce, unemployment, leaving my church, and I was going to be completely alone. It was not a pretty picture. On the other hand, I could take a path that I didn't know, but I could see in the far distance, a glimmer of light. So I made a decision. I surrendered. I admitted that my life was unmanageable and that I could not overcome my addiction by myself. I took the first step on a path that I didn't know, but I just knew I was going in the right direction. On May 7th, 2016, I went to my first 12-step support group meeting. I didn't know who I would see or what would happen. I just knew that I needed to go. But what I found was a brotherhood of other men who shared my same struggles and my same addictions. I was no longer alone. And as I continued to go back and to study the 12 steps and to work the steps, I found hope and peace. But more importantly, I found a higher power the most powerful being in all of the universe, the creator of everything, a God who loves me. And that despite my long list of wrongs, character defects, and people that I've harmed, I could be forgiven. And that God will always love me and will never leave me alone. And that if I'm willing to surrender to his will, that I could do anything and overcome anything. And that with God's help, I could choose to live a sober, free, and joyous life, no matter what. But despite these new convictions, I have found that God continues to test me to help me to grow. November 22nd, 2016 was a Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, and I was attending a group meeting when my wife tried to call me. And then she sent me this text message saying that she was having problems with her heart. So I rushed home and took her to the ER, and after a few hours, the doctor told us that my wife had had a heart attack. Now, my wife, who's here tonight, in my opinion, has the most caring, accepting, forgiving, and loving heart. Spiritually, her heart is perfect. So that night when I left the hospital, I was overwhelmed with confusion, doubt, uncertainty, stress, loneliness, and fear. And if there had ever been a time in my life where I wanted to numb away all of those feelings, it was that moment. And I had done it countless times before. But on my way home, I passed this building. On October 1st, 2011, it was announced that the burned out ruins of the Provo Tabernacle would be restored into a temple. So through a painstaking process of removing the burnt out rubble, digging out a new foundation, and cleaning every single brick, the Provo Tabernacle was transformed into a powerful reminder of the grace of God. So as I passed the Provo City Center Temple that night, I knew that if I was willing to surrender and put everything into God's hands, that everything would be okay. And my prayer that night was simply, God, please help. And as I cried myself to sleep, I could feel his love. The next morning, before I knew it was happening, the miracle started. My son, Spencer, had posted a message on Facebook, and people started calling, asking if they could help. Our neighbors cooked us a complete Thanksgiving dinner. Other friends invited us over to their house. The test that my wife had that day showed that she didn't need to have surgery, and she was released from the hospital a few days later. And friends continued to bring us food for several months, and others raised over $1,000 online. Because I was willing to surrender those emotions of doubt, confusion, stress, loneliness, and fear, they were replaced with confidence, belonging, and peace. And I was able to be strong and care for my wife and my family. And in the end, by the grace of God, we were victorious. Now I have one final date to share. September 24th, 2019, today. In recovery, there's a saying that goes, last week's recovery is as good as last week's shower. Meaning I have to live today. As an addict, I cannot live in the past, nor can I live in the future. I have to live today. Each day, I have to admit my wrongs and work to make them right. Each day, I have to connect with my higher power and seek his will, because he is much better at managing my life than I ever was. But I've learned that if I'm willing to accept God's will and to surrender to his will, that I can continue to live a sober, free and joyous life. Now, the final step in recovery is sharing your message. So tonight, my message is this: there is hope and love for anyone that is struggling with an addiction. The principles of recovery are the same. We have a higher power who loves us and has suffered for us so we don't have to. We are not alone. There are plenty of people that are willing to share their experiences of hope and faith. We just have to be willing to surrender. Thanks. I'm David.